Good morning, everyone. I'm Kevin Allen, and I'm joined by my podcast partner, former NHL defenseman Tom Laidlaw. And this is the Laidlaw and Allen Report. We come to you twice a week to talk all things hockey, except during this pandemic when we've sort of had to touch on a lot of different things, including what's going on with the pandemic. But Tom, there has been some kind of sad news this week. We lost Colby Cave, a member of the Edmonton Oilers, to a brain bleed. And then Tom Webster, who I know you know pretty well, the former NHL coach and player, passed away at age 71. What do you remember about Tom Webster?
It's interesting because it was at a real interesting time in my career. So he came in to coach the Rangers right when I was getting traded. I have kind of a bad memory of him that way. And then at the end of my career, he came into LA and coached there as well. And again, I think you and I have talked about it before. At the end of my career, I had the back issues and everything, and I was mad at the world. I was that stubborn guy who didn't want to change anything. And again, Tom Webster was a part of that. And at the time, I actually blamed him for a lot of the problems I was having. And it's funny. I look back at it now, and I have over the last few years realized it had nothing to do with Tom Webster. It was all me. It's funny that sometimes with athletes, like the same things that make you successful. Like for me, it was just. I just would never quit, right? It was just I had my process. I had the way I trained, the way I got ready for games and everything. And I was going to do that all the time, no matter what. And it served me well. But then at the end of my career, when I had a bad back and it was time for me to change and do different training methods and everything, I was just too stubborn. I remember times that Rick Wilson, who was a fantastic man, coached us in LA, coached the defense. And he got through, he played for the Montreal Canadiens, I think, and he got through some back issues as well. And he used to skate around with me before practice sometimes. He goes, Tom, you got to change. I'm telling you, I know what you're going through. I did the same thing, and I wouldn't listen. And again, like I said, Tom Webster was coaching us, and it was totally unfair to him. Like we had it out a few times, and again, it was more my frustration and where I was in my career and how things were going. He was a really good man, and he actually had a lot of health issues when he was there in LA too. He had the some eardrum thing where he couldn't fly and all that kind of stuff. So he's a good guy. It's really sad to hear his passing. And he had a good career as a player too.
Given the way you live your life now and the True Grit lifestyle and everything, had you embraced that back then, how would it have been different for you?
Well, it's just I don't think I would have had a back issue. A lot of guys have back. As doctors explain, we're not meant to be standing up the way we are. We're certainly not meant to be skating when we are like bent over and twisting and turning, all that. And a lot of guys have back problems. But I was just, like I said, if I'd learned more about my core, tightening up my core and the abs and my diet and all that kind of stuff, I would have played. Easy. I guess I could play another 10 years in the National Hockey League. I got to the point where, and it's so funny looking back at it too, where I just, I said, nope, this is it. I'm not changing that old mentality. I'm not getting on the training table. I'm not changing what I do. And it like I said, and this is a lot of athletes, it really makes you who you are in a lot of cases and gets you where you want to get with that stubbornness. But man, like I look at Zdeno Chara now in particular, I watch him, and he was a big man who was never a fluid skater anyways, but he changes his training methods. Look at Tom Brady, how he's always learning and doing better stuff. So just one of those things you look back at and go, yeah, I'd like to do it differently, but we're getting better now, getting better.
Well, what's interesting, I remember I got to know Lyle Fair, who was a standout player at Michigan State and then played the LA Kings. I think was he there when you were there?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Frozen up there. Bad storms. There you're back.
Yeah, I'm back now. Yeah. It was a great concept for a league because it was like it was sort of like tennis where, in high school or college tennis where the number one seed plays the number one seed and number two. So you had top lines that only went against top lines, and second lines went against second lines, third lines went against third lines, and fourth lines. So it was really fun for everybody.
Right.
You were never dominated. You were always sort of competitive. And he ran that league, and I got to know him really well. And he told me that because he had started to work in schools, hockey schools, and he had to learn about the stuff that he just did instinctually or had been taught, through practice. So he had to learn what was required to be a better skater. And I remember him telling me that he said, I would have been a better player
Yep.
And he didn't last all that long in the NHL. But he said I would have been a better player had I know what I know now.
Okay.
You know, having studied what it takes to be a better skater and studied how to deliver a check and to hold a check and done all the things that he's done. So he became a really good teacher at it because he really worked at discovering it. And it's kind of too bad. But I would say, and tell me if I'm wrong, don't you think the modern player is much more prepared? Like they look at things that the older player never looked at. Like they have stick handling coaches,
yep.
and they have coaches that talk to them about delivering checks, and and then they have nutritionists they work with.
Yeah.
I remember interviewing Charlie Coyle. It was at the NHL media tour where he basically has his food delivered to him, so he makes sure he gets the right nutrition throughout the season and so forth. So it's a completely different game now.
Well, I had my food delivered too. It was Kentucky Fried Chicken, had delivery service back then, and Pizza Hut and all those places. But yeah, we didn't. I know what's funny. It was almost like it was kind of like an unwritten rule that it's like that toughness mentality. You don't want it to be too good. That's the way we kind of looked at it. Like I would just say, throw me a piece of wood and I'll put some tape on it. And that's my stick. I don't really care too much. I want a big blade on it. Other than that, I really don't care much. Like I wanted to intentionally be like that. I didn't want it to be that I was, like so that things had to be perfect for me. And I realized now that was just idiotic. I mean, why not? I mean, I see Sidney Crosby on the bench now with his iPad all the time. We talked about this before too, where he kind of laughs at himself because he immediately goes and grabs the iPad. He wants to know what's going on. Yeah. When I came back to the bench, a lot of times the coach would want to say something to me like, "Get away from me!" I'm in the middle of playing the game. I want to concentrate on the next shift. But I mean, these guys are smarter now. It's just the coaching, the training methods, the equipment. And like I said, what I like about the older guys too, how they evolve in their training. Sidney Crosby's always trying to get to be a better player, right? He's working on his face-offs one year. He's working on scoring goals. Just totally, everything's changed with the game now, and a lot of us. I mean, I prefer. I think a lot of people do too. They're a little bit more of a rugged game, but as far as the way the players prepare now and everything, it's a whole different world.
Well, and there's a lot of benefit too, and I think the average fan, for good reason, doesn't have the time to worry about what it is they're doing while they're checking things on iPads. Well, basically what an athlete is doing, you really see it in football when they take photos.
Yeah.
Quarterbacks and wide receivers and running backs and even linemen are shown these things during the game because sometimes it's hard to tell what the defense is doing to you because, you got one person in front of you that you're trying to deal with, or in the case of hockey, you're trying to get by one guy or you're trying to defend against one guy, where if you can look at the whole thing, you can say, oh, okay, that's what happened. They're double teaming me and they have a guy on the outside. So I caught him out of the corner of my eye. So I cut right.
Yep.
What I should have done. So you can really learn in the course of the game. Sometimes by, looking at the play and how it happens and what they're doing to you. I didn't want to leave Webster too soon. I knew Tom a little bit too. What I was always struck by is I had the impression, and more than I do, he was kind of a hot-tempered, fiery kind of coach, but he was really a soft-spoken man. I loved talking to him. He was a great storyteller and everything. But then I'd watch him, and I thought, man, he just seems like he could really get sort of carried away.
Definitely. He went after Doug Gilmour one time. We were playing a game in Los Angeles, and Gilmour was on the ice. And I think I'm correct. And he may have reached across the boards and tried to swing at him or take a stick to him or something, too. Yeah, he was and you're totally right. That wasn't his personality at all.
No.
He's a gentleman, very big heart and everything like that. But he'd get out of bed sometimes. He'd snap. Yeah.
Well, I do remember one story he told me about. He knew Gordy really well. He played with him in both teams. I think he played with him in the WHA and the Red Wings, and he roomed with him. I think when he was a rookie with the Red Wings, and he tells us this hilarious story of he was in the room and the phone rang, and they asked for Gordy, and he goes, "Not here," and he goes, "Well, can I leave a message?" And Tom gets a pen out and he writes it all down. He says, "I was very careful. The handwriting was perfect because it's Gordie Howe and probably all of his message." And then I hung that down. The phone rang again. He goes, and then I did the same thing. And I got it all. And he goes, then it was again. And I kept doing it. He goes, oh my God. He goes, before long, he said, I had a stack of paper that was 1.5 inches high. I'm taking all these messages for Gordy. And he goes, I made sure I got everyone right. I double checked. I made them read their phone number back because I didn't want to screw anything up. He's Gordy Howe.
Sure.
He said, Gordy came in and I handed him all the message and he looked at him and threw him right in the waist. He said, Gordy was playing going to play a hockey game. He didn't have time to call people back, but that's not the way he viewed it. So it's sad. I don't know how he passed away.
Cancer, I heard. He had cancer.
He did. Okay. Yeah, I didn't know that, but anyway, and now we've also lost Colby Cave of the Oilers. That's a real difficult one. It's not like we don't go through this where you have people who look like the picture of health who end up, losing the lottery of life for reasons that are unclear. And it's just the saddest thing to read, what his wife wrote. You don't see this coming, so there's no goodbyes, and it's just an awful thing. How does this impact the team? I mean, Tom, I'm sure you never went through this, but you know what it's like to be part of a team.
Yeah. Well, if anything, it's you sound almost a little bit selfish looking at it this way. You kind of benefit from it as a team, because I do think, like you said, it's one of those life lessons that guys make sure you're getting everything out of your life, right? And your life for a hockey player is being on that team is a big part of it. I did it myself. You get to the National Hockey League. It's a dream all your life to get there, and you finally get there, and then you kind of go through phases. At least I did, where I kind of took it for granted, maybe a little bit. Didn't realize okay, this isn't going to last forever. This is a dream come true, and then kind of you snap out of it and you realize, okay, yeah, give more to the game. So in these cases where something like that happens, and apparently just a fantastic young guy too, when something like that happens, I hope that the players would look at it and say, we all look at it and say, especially with what's going on with the virus and everything too, like, guys, we gotta live our life. They're like, be positive about things. I know there's stuff going on, but love the people around you, get the most out of every day that you're in, whether it's your career, your relationships, or whatever. And I hope that's what happens with everybody in the NHL and everybody associated with it. So, hey, a rumor I heard too, and this is just a rumor. I don't know how true it is. And actually, who the guy is that told me the rumor. I'll tell you after, but the rumor is that they're going to cut, if the league gets back to playing, they're going to cut it off at 68 games. Everybody's played a minimum of 68 games. So any games that are played beyond 68 will not count towards the standings. And then, so the teams that are at 68, the teams that are in the playoffs are in the playoffs. So they would have some playoffs would start right away to have some training camp, obviously, but that's the latest rumor.
Yeah, I've heard that as well. They would go back, because obviously some teams obviously have played beyond 68, and they would go to 68, and that would be it. But I've also heard that there's, if at all possible, the league wants to play this regular season, just out of fairness, right. Among other reasons. And they've got to. There's a lot of complicating factors, like there are television contracts. Some of local television contracts, you've got to give them at least a minimum of 70 games.
Right.
So there's just kind of all things of complications. Plus, I talked last week. I'm going to write about this today, and I wanted to talk to you about this. But I talked to GMs, some GMs last week, and then some people who are close to what's happening in are familiar with what's happening behind the scenes, and they all told me the same thing, that everyone believes there's going to need to be at least a 3-week training camp.
Yes,
that is going to be just crucial, and they all believe they're going to have to play games. So that with that thought there, they might as well play some regular season games as opposed to exhibition games. And I think it seems like everyone's operating now as they'll do this tournament without fans, and it'll be in a neutral site. And I know Pierre LeBrun of The Athletic and TSN reported that they would be maybe 5-game series, 4 rounds of playoffs, so normal playoffs, and then get to the final and do 7 games. He wrote about that last Friday. Now, again, this is what they hope to do, but right. It's all dependent upon what the President Trump says about when we're going to try to reopen the country. But what I wanted to bring up out of all this, because I think this would be our final topic, is that as excited as I am about playing the playoffs, and I would be very excited about that. I'm concerned that this isn't the right thing.
I'm with you. Yeah,
I'm we need it. I mean, we really do. I think people are getting a little stir crazy, and I think they need to feel some sense of normalcy. But I don't think it's going to be all that easy. Even if you kind of try to create a bubble, which is, the NBA plan is, they'll go to or at least this is what people are speculating. They're going to go to Vegas. Everybody's going to stay at the same hotel, and they're going to create this bubble, and they'll bring everyone in, and then they'll test all the players, and then periodically test them again. But I don't know whether you can just keep this virus out. Like, are they going to? All it takes is one person. To a hotel worker who's supposed to stay there, a chef who sneaks out to see his girlfriend, who is not keeping social distance and has the virus, and he gets. I mean, it wouldn't take much. And then what happens? Like, what happens if we're in the second round and we find that 5 members of one team has the virus? Do we stop for 14 days?
I agree.
Well,
yeah, I agree with you. And here's the other thing for me is, especially like here in New York right now, and it will get more like this in the rest of the parts of the country. People are going through some really tough times. I mean, people are dying. People are, quarantined away from their families. The unemployment rate, some people expect will go to 30% in the country. So all those people, it's a tough time for many reasons. And if we now start moving forward and they want to open up the country, there's going to be more and more testing of just regular citizens. So from what I understand, there at least there was a shortage of the testing, and they're going to say, okay, all these professional athletes get first dibs at the testing because they need to go play a game, or I need to go put food on my family's table. I need to get tested so I can get out there and work again. There's just a lot of factors that. I'm with you. I think we both agree it'd be great to have it on TV and great to go watch the games, get back to some normalcy. But I'm just thinking here in the New York region, this area, it's New Jersey, Connecticut, New York, man, some people are hurting. I mean, they're hurting financially, they're hurting emotionally. People are stuck in their homes. It's, I'm with you. I don't see how we get it done. And plus, this isn't going to end we don't flip a switch. They keep talking about that. They have to phase back in. And even that Fauci, whatever his name is, doctor that's so well versed in all this, talks about how the fact is there's going to be more cases after we open up the country. That's just going to happen. So,
yeah, no, that's right. And we all know, and we keep talking about this, but certainly journalists and players know that the flu just moves through the NHL and NBA in the winter, and it's pretty clear that the competition sort of feeds the transmission of that flu, and it doesn't take much to understand why. Two people collide and your mouth opens and stuff flies out, and it's it sounds a little icky, but that's just the way it works. And so I'm concerned about it, and I for all the reasons that you just laid out, that it's hard times right now. I'd like to see it happen. I mean, I think it would be nice for a little diversion to have people to be able to go home and watch the playoffs on television. And I believe that the players and the NHL will, work hard to try to create a system that is the least amount of danger as possible. Like, there's no doubt. Like, they're not doing this carelessly.
Yeah.
Like, they're talking about it. They're sorting it out. I'm sure they're on the phone with epidemiologists and trying to sort out. But it's still going to require some faith that everybody will stay within the bubble, that that nothing will break down,
Yeah, but you raise a good point. I mean, you're going off faith, and God forbid somebody not only just gets the virus but passes away from the virus. Like, I mean, I just don't see. The further we get in this thing, the more, I guess, the less I believe it's something that we can get back and play in the next few months. I just don't. And maybe it's because I'm here in New York, where it's. And again, I know it's bad other places too, but it's just like, I mean, we had 700 or 800 people every day are dying in New York State from the virus, and
well, and these are horrible deaths.
Yes.
These are deaths, dying alone, can't breathe. This is just bad stuff. I'm in Michigan, and we've been overrun. Especially in the inner city, where a high percentage of our police force has the virus. We've lost 3 members of the police force who've died from it. We've had 4 workers in grocery stores, in Kroger grocery stores, who have died. We've had someone from Myers grocery store that died. So now, our food source, and there are people going in to, you got to go to get food. My wife and I, we have ours delivered, but even that has a complication because, you can't, just call up at 10 and say, I want groceries delivered at 12:15. It doesn't work like that anymore. There are many people who are trying to do that. So it requires some organization, and they're all working hard at it. Like, we've all talked about that, the medical personnel on the front lines of this war against the virus, and they are, and it is a war for them. But it's the same is true for the people working in the grocery store.
Yeah, exactly. Yep.
It's just sad that some of them are in there and that some of them are not wearing masks. I haven't actually been to the grocery store since the CDC said we should even wear masks when we go out, but. I have gone out. I've had to get a prescription, and I was heartened that I went through the drive-through and everybody was masked up. And I now see people walking with masks.
Yes, around here too.
Yeah.
I won't tell you. Yesterday, I just about lost it, though. I got to be honest. I tried. I was walking actually with my son and his wife. We were walking like 15 feet away from each other, and we see these 2 guys. Obviously, they hadn't seen each other while. They come up and they start shaking each other's hands and everything. Well, I immediately snapped. I yelled at him. I said, 6 feet, yelling at him. And there was a group of people around. They all jumped back. And I think the first reaction was, what kind of a jerk this guy is, being me. But then I could tell they all stopped and thought, like, yes, we got to get away from each other. And they all separated and everything, So it's still, it's just like you talked about before. It's human nature for us to, to walk up to people and shake hands. And I'm sure these were 2 good guys who just hadn't seen each other in a while and just forgot what they were doing. But it kind of goes to what you talked about before, that whole faith thing that just assumed that everybody's going to be safe.
And the faith that everyone will conduct themselves and not cheat. I think people do cheat. I think they tell themselves, well, it won't hurt if I just see my grandkid one time.
It's just me. Yeah, it's just me.
Yeah, it's just me. And, I don't feel sick, And, you can always get by with a couple of juicy rationalizations.
Yeah, absolutely.
That'll allow you to, kind of get in there. But I have been encouraged by some of the stories that's come out. I saw one this morning about the wife of a ER doctor who thought, I want my husband home, but I don't want him in the house. And, he needs to see his kids. So she put it out there on social media. She was hoping someone could lend them an RV to park in their thing. And within minutes or whatever, somebody drove 3 hours with an RV and put it right in their driveway. And now it's become a thing. There's now an organized effort to get RVs and things into the driveways of ER personnel who are on the front line, so they can come home and have some semblance of home life and not endanger their families.
That's fantastic. I love that.
And I do too. I just thought it was a great. And what I like most about it is there was no discussion about who was a Republican, who was a Democrat.
Oh, I know. God.
It's time that we just forget about the politics and just concentrate on, moving past this. Like I wouldn't wish Donald Trump's decisions on anyone.
Yep.
Like, because it's an impossible task to kind of sort it out. And we all have our opinions about whether he's done a good job or a bad job. But the truth of it is, no matter who were there,
yep.
It's an impossible task.
Yeah. It's so easy to look back now and say we should have done this weeks ago. We should have done that weeks ago. But it was everybody. I mean, I'm sure you were the same way. I didn't realize, as much as we were being told, I just didn't grasp how this was going to go, that it was going to be this bad. So I was still taking the attitude that, I can go to the grocery store, I can get on a subway and all that kinds of stuff. When we first started, that was my mentality, and realize now that we never should have been doing that stuff. So
no. It's funny how it's evolved too. I had a discussion this morning with a friend of mine. We were talking about, and she was saying to me that, what she wanted most was to be able to get to her hairdresser. And I said, I'm scared to death to go to the barber because, when you go to a barber as opposed to a hairdresser, at least this is, I could be totally wrong in this, but, my sense is that a barber, is moving through 30 or 40 people a day, and a hairdresser's working on 5 or 6 during the course of the day. Yeah. So I'm thinking, 40 people, one person, so I'm going in and, I'm meeting all 40 of those people, even if they're not there. I mean, that's how my mind has been working.
Right.
Because
I think you and I don't need to worry about our haircuts anyways, do we?
Well, you don't, but what little hair I have is unruly. And so, I've yet to train it. So
how was your Easter yesterday?
But it was good. It was surreal,
right?
Because you can't, we Facebook with, or Facebook, we FaceTimed with, some of the family in Chicago, and in South Carolina, we did it the day before. But we still had, the semblance of an Easter meal. And
do you see my videos with my crew with me here?
I didn't see your crew.
So I've started this thing. It started a few weeks ago where I've printed out pictures of different individuals.
Oh yeah, I did see that.
So yesterday we're up to now. So we had Ron Greshner's hanging out with Wilson, the soccer ball from the movie, the Tom Hanks movie. And we have Ron Greshner now. He's with Cher and Christy Brinkley. And then Boomer Esiason too. So it became a joke that he's a big fan of Brad Richards, former New York Ranger. So there's Boomer's there with Brad Richards. Barry Beck has joined us, and we have Elaine Stott, who's on Survivor with me too. So she's there. And yesterday we added Governor Cuomo of New York and the mayor of New York City, Bill de Blasio, because they couldn't get on the phone to figure out whether they're going to close the New York City schools or not. So we figured we'd get them together for Easter dinner and discuss it. So it was it's getting to be. It is funny now because people are sending in the suggestions about who I should post up on the wall. Oh, Nick Fotiu was there too, and a lot of people don't realize. So we joke around. We used to call Nicky Pie Face because he's got the round face. So I put his pictures on an actual pie plate. And sits there. He's the only one that's got a prop. But so it's,
now, has everyone been thrilled to be on your wall? Have you heard?
I think that Ron Duguay's getting a kick out of it. I got him a big handlebar mustache, and Greshner's got a mustache on as well. So it's getting me pretty funny. Actually, some of the people are writing in with some comments. And Nicky Fatia's got a black eye. I'm thinking of maybe putting, I don't know if I can do this on paper or not, so I don't know if I'm going to do it, but Nicky always used to put the Vaseline on his face when he went into fights like a boxer, so the punches would fly off his face better. So I may put some Vaseline on his picture, see what happens.
Now, you have such unique workouts. Have you considered the possibility that you may never want to go back to a gym again, that you just going to do that?
It's amazing. I bought these bands, and I've got my balance board, and I get just as good a workout as I do at a gym now. And plus, I've been walking more. I'm walking anywhere, probably using around 6 or 7 miles a day when walking. So and now I put a backpack on, created kind of a rucksack. I put bags of rice into my backpack. I think I have about 15 pounds in there right now. So
I'm actually surprised you only put 15 pounds in. I would have guessed that you would be marching around with 50 to 75 pound pack.
We're going to work our way up. And it's funny to see that. My son came with me yesterday, and he had to beat me. He put 20 pounds in his backpack. We go up some pretty good hills too. So it's been a fantastic work. I tell you, honest to God, I mean, this is terrible what we're going through, but I feel like I've gotten better, like my cooking and health and learning more. Like we talked about the frozen bananas. Did I tell you the frozen bananas?
Yeah, you keep them in the freezer to extend their life, right?
And I throw them right in. I cut the tips off, cut them in half, and throw them right in the blender with the skin on. Apparently, the skin has got 30% of the nutrients, all the fiber and potassium and amino acids and everything. So we throw it right in with an avocado and everything. So we create our smoothie out of that.
Well, your shrimp scampi looked good yesterday for your Easter dinner.
I tell you, this social distancing, I've been eating so much garlic. I don't think anybody wanted to come near me anyways if I came within 6 feet.
Now, do you still go to the store? Or are you having it delivered? Or
no, I haven't had to go to the store in probably 10 days. And I'm stocked up pretty good. I've got all my pastas and frozen stuff. Like I said, I froze all my vegetables and everything. So even with the spinach is actually pretty good because it's all frozen. I take it out of the bag and it just crumples up. So you don't have to chop it up or anything like that. You just throw it in the saute pan. The same thing with the little cherry tomatoes too. You just throw them in the saute pan frozen.
Well, I get up early and I catch your video well after the fact because it's at 3:58.
Yeah.
But my one recommendation for you is you not wear a hoodie because you're out at 4 o'clock in the morning, and who knows if someone thinks you what they're going to be thinking. It looks like you don't want to be seen. So I mean, you sort of have the Rocky Balboa or Rocky look, but you also look like a guy who just may not want to be seen in the light. And
those guys are releasing from prison, maybe.
Well, or like you had been casing the local houses.
The police had stopped me a couple of times. Just they're looking at me and just saying, "Oh, hey, what are you doing?" Yeah.
Well, that's what I'm saying. I think a different look would serve you well.
It is funny though. I'll tell you, the animals, even at 4 o'clock in the morning, there was a deer out the other day, and I swear he's standing there looking at me. I swear he's got this look in his face, like, "What the heck are you doing out here? Nobody's out here at 4 o'clock in the morning."
This is my time. Yeah. It says this is like you're not allowed out here. This deer, we get till 5 a.m. And then so. All right. Well, as usual, we've gone too long, and we appreciate you listening and watching us here. And we'll be back later this week for the second round of Laidlaw and Allen. I'm Allen. He's Laidlaw. Thanks.
Stay safe, everybody.